Hi, and welcome to Architecting the Multi-Channel Customer Service Blueprint, a one-to-one Take 30 webcast sponsored by InContact. I'm Tom Hoffman, Executive Business Editor at One-to-One Media, and I'll be the moderator for today's discussion where we'll be examining the rise of multi-channel customer service and how a growing number of organizations are creating customer interaction hubs that can be used to better manage the customer experience while providing opportunities for contact centers to evolve as profit centers. Our featured speaker today is Maryellen Abreu, Director of Global Technical Support at iRobot, a leading maker of robotic technology solutions based in Bedford, Massachusetts. Maryellen is a 2009 one-to-one customer champion who has led the transformation of iRobot's customer service organization to providing customer support through a number of channels, including web self-service, and other channels. Maryellen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tom. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. So before we jump into the discussion with Maryellen, I'd like to offer our attendees a few pointers on using the On24 tool. First, please turn off your pop-up blockers to enable a survey that will be provided during the webcast. We'd encourage you to participate in this. To download a copy of today's slides, please click on the green resource widget. If you have a question for one of our presenters, please click on the red Q&A widget and then type in your question and then hit submit. If you encounter any technical issues during the webcast, please click on the Help button located in the center of the toolbar. Also, feel free to tweet about today's webcast using the hashtag that's shown here. Now for a bit more background on the key points that Maryellen and I will be covering in today's discussion. Today, Maryellen and I will explore different ways that the contact center is evolving to meet customer needs and preferences across the various channels that they use, along with steps for building a multi-channel contact center to address these requirements. We'll also examine approaches that can be taken to provide customers with seamless multi-channel service experiences. Further, we'll also discuss the steps that iRobot is taking to help transform its contact center from a cost center to a profit center. And then finally, we'll evaluate some of the techniques that can be used to measure the business benefits of providing customers with solid multi-channel customer service. And this will be followed by a short audience Q&A. So, as customers have become increasingly multi-channel and cross-channel in their interactions with companies, including their use of websites and chat, mobile, social, voice, email, companies have had to make sure that they're able to follow a customer's journey from one channel to the next and ensure that they're providing customers with consistent experiences across each of the channels that they use. So let's say a customer is conducting online research about a possible cruise they're considering to the Caribbean. A website they visit for the cruise operator may contain information about, say, the departure location and destination, but perhaps it's unclear which ports the cruise ship makes stops at or when the stops are scheduled for. So if the customer clicks on a click the chat button with an agent to try to find this information, they shouldn't have to repeat themselves and start the conversation from the beginning. The agent should be able to pick up the discussion and have an understanding of the type of information that the customer is looking for. Unfortunately, many customers do have disjointed cross-channel interactions with companies. And this is often because customer service applications are siloed between different channels, such as voice and traditional online, and chat, and agents aren't able to follow the thread of a customer's journey from one channel to the next. This lack of integration between channels also makes it difficult for agents and other frontline employees to be able to obtain a more complete view of each customer, including, say, their transaction history, the channels they use for different purposes, and other information that reflects their needs and preferences. When customers have poor experiences with companies, whether in individual channels or based on the experiences that they have as they move from one channel to the next, this can have a dramatic impact on business outcomes. So if we look at this slide here, and it's reflected in some of the findings from this chart from Forrester Consulting on multi-channel marketing, there are a number of business ramifications around the multi-channel customer experience. When customers have poor experiences, they're more likely to seek out companies that can provide them with better experiences that they expect. So, we've seen companies like Amazon and USAA and Zappos and how they've been able to raise the bar on customer experience by consistently providing customers with exceptional experiences. So as a result of these types of experiences that many customers have had, customers expect all companies they deal with to provide them with a higher level of personalized and satisfactory service. Customers simply don't have the patience or the tolerance to put up with bad experiences anymore. So not only must company leaders factor in the potential for customer churn and lost revenue from those customers that have poor or even mediocre multi-channel customer experiences, they also need to examine how customer recommendations or negative reviews about experiences they share in their social networks with friends, what kind of impact that will have on incremental profits and revenues as well. Some companies, such as iRobot, have taken a methodical approach to delivering consistent multi-channel customer experiences that are aided in part by the use of a digital interaction hub or a platform of some kind that can be used to manage support across the various channels that customers use. Again, here to share with us iRobot's journey along the multi-channel customer service path and the lessons that they've learned along the way with business performance gains that they've been able to achieve is Maryellen Abreu. Maryellen, thanks again.
Thank you, Tom.
So, Maryellen, can you start by telling us a little bit about iRobot and how the company's contact center operations have evolved with multi-channel customer support in recent years?
Sure. iRobot, like most companies, have evolved from a traditional phone-centric call center approach, customers calling in, and we had multiple outsourced call centers. So the call centers themselves had that valuable data, and as customers emailed to us, we said, oh, now we have to add email and other methods or channels of communication. And when we added those pieces, they were silos, and it was difficult to see the customer's interaction, whether it was through a phone call and then through an email. The agent wasn't able to see that 360-degree view of the customer. So we had decided to work on a platform to give us total transparency into those conversations with the customer, regardless of what channel it was occurring on. And that would allow call centers in many different locations to service the same customer and deliver a consistent service experience to them.
Okay, thanks. So it's also, I would think, also enabled agents to be able to follow the thread of a customer's interactions across channels as well.
Exactly. So if a customer was on a forum or on a chat, you would be able to see what was the response on that channel, and then be able to see the fact that then they called in, and theoretically that was escalating an issue. These customers, they don't really want to call in, and these other methods or channels, such as email, are less costly and sometimes much more efficient to answer the customer. So by adhering to the channel of choice, the customer's channel of choice, I believe we increased efficiency.
Okay, thanks. So what are some of the ways in which customer behavior in different channels has been used and gathered and used by iRobot to shape the kind of support that's being offered to them in a particular channel?
Well, I believe these different channels, especially because it's one-to-many in some instances, if a customer chooses to raise a question about a service issue, they could do it on a public forum. And now we're able to respond to that customer and service many customers at once. But on the flip side, it empowers customers when they have an issue and they want to show how unhappy they are with the problem that they're encountering. They know they're blasting this to a crowd of people. So I have to say that whether it's the right thing to do or not, if a customer is very, very loud on something like Facebook, they get our attention very quickly.
Okay. All right, thanks. So it sounds like it's been an effective approach for gauging customer behavior, too.
It is. I think. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, what are some of the different channels that iRobot currently supports or plans to support for customer service? I just want to make our attendees aware of that.
We currently are supporting phone, email, chat, forums, Facebook, and Twitter. Also YouTube. A lot of customers where our product is visual and audio, they'll post an issue on YouTube, so we need to keep track of that as well. Interesting.
So does iRobot use technology and techniques to manage the multi-channel customer service experience? Can you talk a little bit about those?
We do, and I think that was really where we evolved our call center organization, is by choosing a platform that had these integrated channels, being able to, again, see that 360-degree view of the customer, whether they called, whether they emailed us, whether they were just looking at FAQs on our knowledge base, whether they were on a forum, a user forum, posting a message, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and chat as well. We wanted to be able to see that customer conversation and respond to that customer in a timely fashion. And sometimes I would even prioritize obviously the forums and the Facebook over a phone conversation. And that actually, I think, pushed customers more online. They tend to look and view information online, read the forums, and trust peer reviews more than they would trust the documentation inside a box. So I actually think that the customers feel that the information they're getting is more reliable when it's out in the public as it is today.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think we're certainly seeing more of that, but I would imagine that customers are probably maybe more reliant upon forums that are supported by iRobot or even outside of iRobot, given the technical nature of the products in question and relying on other customers' advice in that standpoint.
Yes, and we do bridge relationships with some forums outside of our own in order to make sure that we're all on the same page, or if they do post something that we don't think is accurate, we'll put that link in our forum and we'll say, yes, it was posted there, and here are the pros and cons of the approach that they're recommending.
Okay, thanks. So, Maryellen, I know that you touched on this earlier, but I wanted to just dive in a little bit more deeply on how iRobot goes about tracking its customers and the different channels they use for support.
So, yes, we use a CRM infrastructure which has the ability to look at all these different channels and report on activity on those channels. It's important to also have a sentiment analysis, a level of gauging, is this an important issue that we need to respond to quickly? Because there's a lot of conversations out there on forums and Facebook and Twitter that we may not need to respond to. So it's important to understand if there's a negative thread, and also it would be nice to reward those folks that are liking our product, promoting us to others with loyalty programs, again, to drive that revenue.
Interesting.
So this part of it, thinking about the sentiment's important, but we're also investigating a social scoring of a customer. So if a customer happens to be frequently posting public information, that customer gets a lot of attention from our call centers. And that person, when we turn them around, they also are our biggest advocate. And they will post something positive just as much as they would post something negative. So they want to be heard. We're making sure they're heard, and I think it's paying off.
So social is certainly one channel where customer feedback can be gathered and acted on. What are some other ways that iRobot collects and acts on customer feedback?
The social scoring, we look at measuring the products that they've purchased. We look at how loyal, I guess it's a way of measuring loyalty when we look at how many interactions they've had with us. So again, some of these text analytics engines are currently under investigation, and I think that that's going to help us look at the conversations and measure negative versus positive, and certainly up where someone has posted something online, if they've purchased. That's important for us to know as well.
Sure. So one of the mantras that's been echoing with respect to multi-channel customer service is the need for companies to be able to provide customers with seamless support across the different channels that they use. And I wanted to ask, what have been the biggest challenges that you've faced and that iRobot has faced in trying to deliver seamless service experiences to customers?
I think the first challenge was management's reluctance to be so transparent. So if you're going to respond to customers online and in a public forum, you really need to have trusted agents. So that led to our next challenge would be, how do you evaluate the people that are allowed to post publicly? How do you train them? And I think training was probably the most important piece of unrolling this social call center, is that the agents needed to have written capability. They needed to know when to respond and when to back off, and make sure that they knew when to bring a customer into a one-to-one conversation. So take the conversation in-house. Those were all skills that we continue to try to refine, and we calibrate all those channels in order to train the agents and highlight where we need to improve our process. But it shows when you have issues. It shows when you have problems, and each one of those complaints I look at as business intelligence to our organization.
That's an interesting point, because I think with some people would look at this in terms of the challenges they may face in terms of, say, for example, the ability to have applications that support different channels integrated well together to be able to follow the thread of a customer's journey, which is certainly important, but it's also important, as you bring up, to examine the human element here as well with agents.
Yes, those conversations, I believe, are more powerful when you present the voice of the customer in-house than when you present numbers of metrics. I think the conversation holds more weight internally. So those are the types of things that were valuable to the organization, but then having the integrated solution allows you to report on all of the conversations, and then if you can add in what the customer has purchased and understand what their lifetime value is to the company, you can get into a more profitable situation.
Right. And since you bring up metrics, can you talk about how iRobot's support of the multi-channel customer service environment has influenced how it goes about measuring customer service?
Yes, I think we measure the interactions, but what I didn't realize the impact would be very powerful when you do a one-to-many service. You're actually bringing down the cost of service. So I notice a lot of customers are actually going on forums and just reviewing answers, and sometimes customers answer for us, and we don't even need to respond. So that whole community that blossoms ends up being more efficient, and then we can tie in the loyalty piece. Again, part of it needs to be integrating in if you can understand any of the purchase behavior. So that means you really need to know more about your customer, make sure they're registered, and reach out to them with their different marketing campaigns. We survey the customer also after each interaction, and that is integrated into the solution as well. So I can tell if a customer had a better experience via email versus a chat, for instance. So again,
right.
We're monitoring everything with that survey capability, also built into the infrastructure.
Can you also share with us how iRobot has been able to play off the work that it's done with its support of multi-channel customer service to evolve from a cost center with the contact center to more of a profit center?
Sure. Phone is absolutely the most expensive channel. It's one-to-one, and it's expensive. Email is less expensive. You can push a link to a customer with a video. You can have canned responses, which are very quick in order to send to the customer. So I think it's not rocket science to explain how these other channels are more efficient and take less time. So by reducing the costs, we could spend more time embracing the customers, the ones that do call, and actually converting into upsells. I actually find that a lot of the basic troubleshooting is done via FAQs, and in our case, we use a lot of videos. I think that actually has improved the customer experience because it's a 24/7 knowledge base, and they're only contacting us when they want to know, oh, can you tell me the differences between these products? And then you can embrace them, have the conversation. So it has become more profitable. As I mentioned, we're pretty much break even at this time, which is pretty exciting. But I believe by the end of 2013, we certainly will be profitable organization.
That's impressive. So while we're on this stream of thought, what are some of the metrics that iRobot uses to measure the business impact of customer service?
The customer satisfaction score, that is something that everyone's held accountable for. We no longer measure talk time. The traditional metrics of average speed to answer and talk time, those sort of got thrown out. And the customer satisfaction and the first call resolution were things that really mattered, and those were the things that we're trying to improve upon. That said, we also look at revenue and purchases through our customer service organization. We have put some incentives in place for those agents, and they're really doing a fantastic job of taking these conversations. And I'll give an example. When they're on a chat and they may be having a discussion trying to explain one item versus another, those chats can be very long and expensive. So we train the agents on when to make sure you call the customer, take them off of chat, and embrace them in a conversation. And then that is able to convert into a sale. So we look at the sale, and we look at the cost of the call center itself.
Right. No, that seems important, certainly. Well, Maryellen, thank you for taking us through iRobot's multi-channel customer service journey. At this point, we'd like to open this up to the audience Q&A. First, before we do, a few reminders. We'd like to encourage everyone to participate in the survey that's posted during the Q&A. So please take a moment to participate. Again, to do so, you'll need to turn off your pop-up blockers to enable the survey. Now let's begin the Q&A. To ask a question, as a reminder, click the red Q&A icon, type in your question, and then hit send. And if we don't get to your question today, we'll email you a response. So Maryellen, this first question is about how earlier you spoke about the steps that iRobot has taken to track customers across the channels they use for support. And as we also talked about, many companies struggle to track customers as they move from one channel to the next. I'm wondering, can you offer some advice to our listeners on recommended starting points for tracking the cross-channel customer?
Yeah, I would say cloud infrastructure is important, and the reason why is these channels are changing constantly. So in order to stay on the cutting edge of each of these platforms, I would probably choose infrastructure that's in a cloud, and I would make sure that I had the ability to upgrade on a yearly basis at a minimum in order to take advantage of all the different channels of communication and how they interact. Analytics is really important in making sure that you have someone dedicated on the analytics part of the infrastructure, because that's where you can explain the value add to upper management.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Another question that came in is if you can offer listeners recommended starting points for measuring multi-channel customer service results.
I know in some cases people will look at the number of people on Facebook. I looked at positive versus negative posts. And I know at this time we still do some of it manually if the forum is not connected to our solution. But I would say some of the text analytic engines that are evolving are going to really help us measure that information.
Right. You had spoken before about various channels that iRobot supports, and with respect to the challenges around providing customers with seamless experiences, the role of the agent and agent training in this. And a question came in where they're asking you, has your company had to seek a different caliber of contact center agent or seek or develop agents with certain types of skills?
We have. And the phone conversations that an agent we ask that they reiterate that in an email and they summarize the recommendation. So the written skills are really important. Traditionally we would test for just the phone capability, language skills, but now we test for both the phone skills as well as written ability, and we emphasize and train on that, calibrate the written skills just as much as we do the phone. And even the chat, understanding how to chat professionally. When a lot of these agents are very young and they use abbreviated terms, we had to have a whole lesson training program on how to respond on a chat. So I think each channel is unique in itself. Facebook can be fun, Twitter can be fun, but there are a lot of guidelines about what to do and what not to do.
Excellent. Well, thanks again to Maryellen Abreu for sharing these terrific insights with us today. And thank you all for joining us as well. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, so any unanswered questions will be addressed by email. From One-to-One Media and our sponsor In Contact, I'd like to thank you again for joining us and have a terrific day.